The road to the $1.5 million Esports World Cup in Riyadh goes through this year's Champion Chess Tour on Chess.com. Welcome to the 2025 Chess.com Classic. 3 players have locked up an Esports World Cup spot: Magnus, Hikaru, and Jan. They are already in, but every CCT title matters.
Magnus Carlsen does it again.
At last year's Chess.com Classic, in a thrilling 2-part grand final, Magnus and Alireza fought tooth and nail for every square, and Firuzha pulled through.
Alireza has done the unimaginable.
Now there are 9 more spots available, 5 additional invites, and 8 qualifiers will take their shot at it. There is a lot of talent here, 3 classical world champions and multiple rapid and blitz champions. But this tournament comes down to more than just talent. Who will best handle the pressure of a 10-minute game without increment and stake their position this summer? The stakes are higher than they ever been. Who will etch their name into the CCT's legacy? Who will get their chance to make history at the Esports World Cup? Find out here at the Chess.com Classic starting right now.
Welcome everyone. 2025 Chess.com Classic has reached the grand finals. My name is Grandmaster Mon Hamilton. I'm joined by the amazing Grandmaster David Howell. And David, I'm loving the way our screens here are just kind of flowing into one another. Nice light setup, man.
Yeah, I had to copy you, Aman. It's in your honor. This is the first time my lights have ever been this color. So it's for a special occasion. It's finals day. I've been watching you the last couple of days, and yeah, I can't wait for the play to begin.
Absolutely. I mean, we have an amazing grand final up ahead. Magnus Carlsen has been in the winner's bracket the entire time, but MVL has been fighting in order to make that matchup happen. But before we get to that matchup, let's remind everyone, David, of course, all of the players that are going to Riyadh. These are the players that are going to be participating in the Esports World Cup. Magnus Carlsen, MVL, of course, on your screen. But David, any of those names stand out to you?
Well, I think the fact is that they all stand out here, Aman. The one guy I can't believe wasn't snapped up by an esports team, Vladimir Fedoseev. Maybe that is the name for me. It's just nice to see someone, go out there, achieve it. And yeah, he'll be flying solo at the Esports World Cup, but maybe that brings some of the pressure down. And yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic field. I don't think we can complain at all about what we're going to see in Riyadh.
Spoiled indeed, and just so many players being picked up by an esports org is a phenomenal thing to see for the game. Esports and chess just coexisting. And let's take a look at our bracket for today. Now it's been a long road for a lot of these players, David. 16 is where we started as we look at the overall path that these players took. And let's start with MVL. Obviously, he's in that grand final, but when he dropped down to the losers bracket, that was in losers round 2, and this is sort of where it all began for him. He had a tough path, David. It started by beating Arjun in a match that could have gone either way, and look how far he's come.
Yeah, yesterday was a fantastic day. You were calling the shots, Aman. He was so impressive just watching him kind of breeze past some of the world's best players. Yes, it was up and down some of the games, but in the end, defeating Jan Nepomniachtchi, defeating Abdu Satrov and Hikaru Nakamura in a single day, that is a real rarity. And he's going to be full of confidence now. He actually dropped down to this loser's bracket, MVL, because he lost to Magnus Carlsen earlier in the week. And that was a very close match. Should maybe have gone the other way, if anything. And yeah, here we are today. This was the score 3-1. And Aman, how much has he impressed you at MVL? And do you think he has a shot against Magnus?
Yeah, Magnus, he's kind of taken that easier path in the winner's bracket. Do I think he has a shot? Absolutely. MVL has been playing phenomenally, and you can just tell when someone is in form. Magnus is a guy that just always tends to look in form, but MVL has really showed up representing Team Vitality. And speaking about that head-to-head, David, let's actually examine these two players a little bit more closely as we take a look at a graphic that just kind of shows the history of these players when they played each other in Champions Chess Tour events. You can see that Magnus Carlsen does hold a commanding lead, but let's take note, David, the last time that they met, MVL defeated him 3-1 in the winner's semis. That was in the 2024 Crunch Labs Masters. So a bit of inspiration in terms of the recent results.
Yeah, they've got a lot of history, even going back a few years now. 2023, I think it was the AI Cup. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave met Magnus in a grand final and managed to win not just the first match but also the reset afterwards. He's got a history, he's got form, and of course these two, they've known each other since they were literally about 8-9 years old, so they know each other's strengths and weaknesses so well.
Exactly right. And look at that. I mean, that is a picture of a man who's prepared, relaxed. He's in the Team Vitality lab right there. The look of a guy who's just focused but relaxed, David. I mean, we chatted to him yesterday in the interview, and obviously he was humble and calling himself the underdog for the matchup. But while that may be true, I don't think it's anywhere to the degree that he was trying to represent.
Yeah, it was fun watching that interview, and yeah, I think there's this steely even determination behind MVL. He's relaxed, he's confident. He was a bit inspired yesterday, and maybe it's nice to take the pressure off. Everyone's an underdog against Magnus Carlsen, right? So kind of not having to worry about maybe dictating the pace of the game, not having to worry about anyone expecting anything. Maybe that's going to be his secret weapon today. He's always been a bit of a counter-attacking player at MVL. When he gets a chance, he'll try and take it. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And Aman, he's been here for ages, we've been told. He's been waiting for this game, itching for it to start. Really professional to see from MVL.
That's right. Yeah, he's always here early, and we know that Magnus is one to not always be necessarily early for the game. So two totally different styles there. And we can also, David, as we're waiting for the games to get underway, let's remind people that, while everyone's qualified for the Esports World Cup, there is still something on the line here. As we like to say, that the guys are playing for fun, but their version of fun is, first place of $25,000, second of $20,000, just a casual $5,000 match, David.
Yeah, we sometimes forget because it's Magnus, because it's MVL, like world-class players, that the money as well is a factor, and it's not just pocket money. This is decent. Yeah. This is a decent amount of change here. And yeah, of course, $5,000 in it. I think they just want to win for honor, though, for their esports teams, Aman.
Exactly. And let's not also forget that MVL has the tougher task. The coming in from the losers bracket also means that you don't just need to beat Magnus Carlsen. You need to beat him twice. And if they have that reset, it will be just a best of two. So we start with a best of four matchup, but the reset will be best of two. So something to keep in mind, if he's able to pull that off, he'll have to do it twice. But as you mentioned, David, 2023 AI Cup, he is actually one of the few players, I think Ali Reza, the only other one to have ever beaten Magnus Carlsen back-to-back. So quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, quite the accomplishment, and not many people capable of winning one game against Magnus, let alone two whole matches. But MVL, if he wins the first one, big if, but if he does, he'll feel confidence. He'll feel momentum as well on his side. So yeah, we'll see. I know it's a cliche, Aman, but I guess take it one game at a time.
Yeah, take it one game at a time. It is such a cliche, but what else are you supposed to do in this format? There's the path is so long, so far ahead for MVL to be thinking about, oh, I'm going to play this in the reset afterwards. It just, take it one game at a time. Magnus is a tough opponent. And, the thing is, there's Armageddons in the event that the match is tied, David. So you don't have to take, these crazy risks, go all out. But, as I say that, I'm reminded that MVL has been doing that the entire event.
Yeah, it's not his style to play it super safe or be really pragmatic about things. He'll stay true to himself, and making some last minute adjustments there. He looks focused. I'm just curious about Magnus's form, because he had the day off yesterday, and that's kind of a mixed blessing in my opinion. You will be fresh, but MVL's been kind of staying sharp, staying in shape, and Magnus, yeah, maybe a bit of rust, at least in the early stages of the first game today. Maybe that's the time that MVL tries to strike.
Yeah, that's a good point. Early on, what I've noticed, David, early on in these matchups, maybe you saw this in the matches that you were commentating, but I noticed that they really start off pretty slow, almost like the first game, maybe even the first two in a 4-game match. They're not looking to take crazy risks. They're almost happy to maybe make a draw. Sure, if there's a big moment, they'll take it. But is that something that you can say, makes a lot of sense at this level? They're just kind of feeling each other out?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for Magnus, if he gets a say in it, he wouldn't mind a couple of quieter games just to see kind kind of feels his way and kind of wants to know exactly what he needs to do in this grand final to get past MVL. I think MVL might be more inclined to take risks. He'll need to at some point. But definitely in their first match a couple of days ago now, it was a quieter game. People see the 3-0 scoreline, but the first game was very quiet until MVL got an advantage, was winning, and eventually kind of let it slip in one move against Magnus. Second game, quiet. MVL had a winning advantage, let it slip against Magnus. So it always kind of builds up. It's never kind of fireworks from move one.
Right. And we, in that interview with MVL, he also was, before I could even ask about it, he was quick to say, if there's +7 positions on the board, it's my job to win those come the grand final. So it won't be anything more of that from me.
Yeah, getting the +7 position, that's the hard part. I'm sure he'll win one or two of those if he gets more opportunities. So what are your predictions? Do you think we'll see that second, do you think we'll see the reset, that second match, or will Magnus close it out before that?
I mean, it's always an easy thing to say that Magnus is going to close it out. I'll just be the first to say, I was looking at Hikaru Nakamura's form and even his match against Magnus, that, horrific, let's say, blunder to resign. That match could have been completely different. So I thought Hikaru was in great form, and I had him even with the advantage over MVL. And then when Maxime just came in and showed the level that he did, that's reaffirming to me that, he's not one to doubt today. While he may not walk away with the eventual match win, I definitely think seeing 2 matches today, David, is very, very likely.
Yeah, I would love to see that. More chess is always better. And you're 100% right. Like, everyone's in good form. Everyone has to be to get to this point in a tournament. And often it's just decided by moments, right? If it wasn't for Maxime blundering a rook in one move against Magnus, we might have had a whole different path here if it wasn't for Hikaru resigning. So Magnus maybe a bit lucky on the way, but either way, it's just these 1 or 2 moments here and there.
It is. And we have both of our players here, Maxime and Magnus Carlsen, now on screen. And just the way he's hurrying around, David, I'm getting the feeling that he may have just arrived.
Yeah, and I shouldn't really be sharing this private information, but Magnus, he was having lunch literally 2 minutes away from this building about an hour ago. So he has no excuse to be rocking up last minute. But that's his style. I think we're all used to it at this point. It's not it's not personal. It's not him trying to play mind games. It's just how Magnus rolls. And he'll be back in his chair in a minute.
And you know what? He's made quite the career doing just that. So if I'm Magnus, I wouldn't change a thing.
Exactly. And Maxime doesn't look so enthused by by the wait here, but once they get going, they'll both be locked in. They'll both be super focused. Magnus in Oslo, and MVL, I guess he's in Paris.
Yeah, he was talking about the Vitality headquarters there, or the esports center, and he said it was a really convenient place for him to drop by, just in Paris. And I think he's been enjoying it. I don't want to attribute too much to the setup that he's got as opposed to the skills he's been bringing, but he's definitely comfortable.
Yeah, he looks very comfortable, and it's a bit of a trademark for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. He's always snacking. I've noticed these rapid games. He's always munching on, fruit, nuts, chocolate, just non-stop throughout the games. And just really nice to see 2 professional setups, 2 proper pro cameras. It's a nice change from some of the webcams we've been seeing throughout the Champions Chess Tour.
We got to talk about this glass here. Magnus said this is how the Vikings drink. That looks like a flower vase. David, is this confirmed?
I can confirm it is a flower vase that Magnus is drinking from. It was actually a good friend of his, Aspion, DJ Asios. Some streamers or some Twitch fans might know him as, who kind of set him up with that glass. He genuinely thought it was a water glass the first time, but no, flower vase confirmed. And games have started, man.
Fantastic. We could talk about that flower vase all day, but we're here to talk about the chess, and Magnus underway with the white pieces. So let's see how things start off, because you mentioned that the early games are going to be kind of important to see what these players are bringing to the table.
Yeah, and okay, interesting. Magnus, I was going to say refraining from going for an open Sicilian, but there we go. Pawns exchanged in the center now, and he drops back with his knight. So not quite a transposition to Maxime's favorite Najdorf, where there would be potentially a pawn on the a6 square. Instead, he's forced Maxime to commit a pawn in the center. Magnus now, I'm pretty sure, is going to bring his bishop out to this light square. And okay, a pawn structure that's very familiar to all Sicilian players. Aman, is this in your repertoire?
It's not in my repertoire, but the offbeat ideas like the move h3, just those small moves that you're pretty much playing a main opening, but you have these inclusions just to try to throw, like it's going to take something like that to throw an expert like Maxime off. And so I really enjoy playing chess in this kind of way lately. So I definitely have an appreciation for these small sidelines. And Magnus is just, as I said, trying to find any way to get Maxime thrown off in an opening that he knows so well.
Yeah, it's nice to hear you enjoy those types of moves. I do too. I think it's a symptom of age. No more bishop c5 Nigels.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been saying that maybe 10 years ago in my career. What is this h3 nonsense? But I have an appreciation for the subtleties there as Magnus is showing.
Yeah, and I think for everyone at home, a very standard Sicilian type of position, but the pawn to h3 move earlier kind of he was just waiting, Magnus, for MVL here to show his hand what pawn structure he was going to go for and then decide how to set up his pieces. And now White jumping in with a knight into the center. Beautiful square. This is always a key idea in this type of Sicilian, and you had to take with the bishop, not the knight. Otherwise, there would have been a fork. And okay, change in pawn structure, Aman. Who do you think this is going to favor?
Offhand, I actually like it for Maxime. Obviously, the concession is just the bishop pair given up, but there's a really easy future to imagine where the f7 pawn makes it to f5 once the knight moves, and that's a pretty dangerous, control of the center, but even potential attack. And as I say that, the knight moves out of the way, perhaps hinting at that idea, as well as maybe the knight just repositioning.
Yeah, the knight could start hunting down this bishop at some point. Magnus retreats, potentially, if that happens. He creates a square there for the bishop to jump back to. Yeah, I must admit, I've tried to dodge open Sicilians my whole life because this type of pawn structure, I find it so hard to evaluate. It feels like it's just move by move. It feels like if you're in time with White, you might be fine. You might have an advantage on the queen side. Black, though, in the center, easy play. Two bishops, though, there's a lot of imbalance here.
Yeah, I will say that this is the type of position. You can see the the eval bar, right? It's already enjoying White's position a little bit more, and so I would say that this is the type of position where strong player is really going to handle it well, and I would say the average player, as White here, is just not going to do that well. The pawns look menacing; they're really tough to handle, but someone like Magnus and the players in this tournament, they just know how to handle the bishop pair so well.
Yeah, we saw that from Maxime in some key games yesterday. He both fought, but then later used the bishop pair to his advantage. I do worry about this black knight on the edge of the board. Maybe that's why the computer's favoring White right now. If this knight were anywhere else on a better square, I'm not sure exactly where it should be, but then I would feel much more comfortable about Black's position.
Yeah, that already kind of highlights it, that we're not even sure where it should be. If the knight goes to c4 and gets kicked out, it has to retreat to b6. And speaking of that, the queen goes to b6. I start to think about positions kind of like you're highlighting, where the knight just doesn't really have a way to get into the game. And maybe a slow move like rook b1, defending the b pawn so that the bishop on c1 can move, would be what Magnus is going for. And it's a big red X on it.
Of course, that's always the way, right? Super logical move, but it's a miss. Maybe there was something else. I did for a second wonder whether knight into d4, trying to get into some nice squares, taking advantage of the black bishop being loose was an idea. But okay, Magnus didn't want any fancy stuff. I don't think we can blame him there, right? It's still an advantage for White.
Exactly. Yeah, these are the kind of misses that you might see at this level, where a great move is played, but maybe an even better one was available. And that's often where strong players' radar might not be as sharp because the position's already good, so they're not really looking for something extravagant.
And Maxime making Magnus think. Very quiet move, I've got to say. Rook to f7. He's just defending his bishop, kind of keeping his options open. Not really sure the deeper idea behind it. But Magnus now has to decide what to do. I guess you could bring your bishop out, hit the queen, but the bishop might be a target on the e3 square later anyway for the black pawns. So he waits.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the the real plan for black? Because as you said, a lot of cagey moves like rook f7, queen b6, now queen back to c7. The knight on a5, sure, eventually it might show up on the c4 square, but it doesn't do that much from there, and it's very easy to kick out with the move like b3, and maybe the pawn goes to c4 afterwards. So you almost don't want to allow b3, c4 to be played. Leave the knight on a5 so that can't happen. But then, kind of wondering what the next moves are going to be. Expanding on the king side here, David, a typical attack almost looks more dangerous for black than it does for white with those bishops aimed.
Yeah, often you do want a kingside pawn storm when you have the pawn majority. Here, black has 4 versus 3 on the kind of right half of the board. But as you say, the bishops, especially the light squared bishop, the fact that that's staring in that direction makes it, wow. I was actually thinking when you said pushing the pawns forward, I was like, oh, g4, is that what you were going to suggest? And you were saying it for black. But look at this, Saman. He's going for it, Magnus himself with white.
Wow. I mean, in theory, in principle, the move is very satisfying, opening up that light squared bishop. But it's just one of those moves that you'd never really think of. And rook f8 has been played. I mean, can you blame him? It's getting a question mark here, but it seems to be the most natural move in the position.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us would play that in a heartbeat and feel very good about it. I wonder whether it's just, okay, there we go, Magnus. It's as simple as setting up a mate threat, and some calculation needs to be done. You need to see a mate after rook takes knight here. Ooh,
yeah, my pattern only tells me that queen h7 check, bishop g6, and bishop h5 is how white usually plays those positions. So if that is not working here, David, then I'm out of luck.
Yeah, this hasn't been played yet, Maxime's thinking, but bishop h5, the bar stays sky high, and this is happening, Aman.
Oh wow, my goodness.
Knight has been played. Magnus has a draw, we should mention. He can repeat moves by dropping back with his queen and checking, but it's a knockout if he finds bishop to g6 and just dropping back.
And Maxime just shook his head. He kind of like tapped himself on the head, like, what was I thinking? Because this is not something that you willingly walk into. First of all, when Magnus Carlsen hangs a piece, you got to be thinking he's got something planned. So Maxime now in a position where you can't go back, David. You're only going forward from here as the king marches up.
Yeah, he's trying to play king of the hill here. He's trying to get his king in the center of the board, but it's not going to work out. You can even drop your bishop back this way, maybe attack the rook and threaten queen back to g6 checkmate. This is just over. Like, we were talking about a complex middle game just a few moves ago, and he finds this move, bishop back, bishop h5. Maxime looks ready to resign, man.
I agree. This is a really tough position to be in. Also, bishop to d8. I mean, he's not even going to make a move. Yep, that is just over. What a shocking turn of events in game number 1, David, as the move g4 just it basically uncorked the entire attack.
Wow. I mean, that was over so fast. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave still had 6 minutes left when he resigned there. That was crazy. Blink and you miss it stuff, but we see an early score by Magnus Carlsen. He's got to be a huge favorite now.
Yep.
I'm still in shock, I've got to admit.
Amazing. Magnus up 1-0 after a very quick checkmate in that first game. It was basically unavoidable at the end, and I see both players on the screen probably looking at that game review going, how the heck did that happen so quickly? MVL just kind of fell victim to this g4 move, an easy move to underestimate, and it's almost like Magnus was playing on easy mode. Like, he just went queen d3, threatening mate. MVL kind of let it happen, and that was that, David.
Yeah, and I don't know about what to say about that. I don't want to be too harsh, Aman, simply. Like, a 24-move game in a high-stakes event like this, it's kind of unforgivable. Queen d3, bishop on c2, that's like an elementary attacking idea. MVL definitely should have slowed down. But okay, we get another game instantly. That's the good news.
It is the good news. You could make the argument that a longer break might be more desirable, but if I'm MVL, I want to get straight into the next game, especially with the white pieces, and hopefully strike back.
And we see a very trendy line of the Sicilian. It's the accelerated dragon, where black very quickly fianchettos the bishop. And there were some forced draw lines, which I'm glad the players didn't go into there. MVL definitely not wanting that with the white pieces. But okay, we get a Maroczy bind. What do you make of this? Good news for Maxime? All the pieces on the board for a while in this opening?
Agree. Yeah, I feel like the Maroczy bind, just in terms of the structure, when you have the c4, e4 pawns like that, has to be a good thing in general. I think most top players always want this structure if they can get it. Easy development. Of course, lots to watch out for. You have to kind of safeguard many pawns, many squares. But the rewarding thing, if you do take care of those things, is you have more space and much better outlook for the future. So I think he'll be happy to have a position that at least has a good future if he can manage the opening and middle game.
Yeah, very hard to get attacked here with white. So you're very stable, very solid for a long, long time. Extra space. Magnus loves these positions with the white side. So I think psychologically, maybe nice to play it the structure against him. Yeah, I think good choice by Maxime, and early days, of course. But yeah, you've got to recover from that last blow. That was crazy stuff. So unexpected. This whole tournament, Aman, it's always throwing up these things when we least expect it.
Absolutely. This entire event has been wild, and I was never going to expect that the grand final would be any different. Bishop e2 played. I mean, a simple castling intended here. White always has in reserve moves like h3 or f3, and rook to c1 after knight d7, just to take care of the knight on c3. I mean, this is a kind of a pseudo pawn sacrifice, but I don't think Magnus has his eyes on the a2 pawn.
Well, you never know. He's pausing here, Magnus. I don't. Or maybe if it was like a must-win game with black and he's playing a lower-rated opponent, then you think about giving up your beautiful bishop and grabbing a flank pawn like this. But I agree. Even if there's no, I don't see any immediate refutation, I've got to admit. But
Yeah, I will say that. I will say that. And yet he castles, which is probably the safer choice. The knight on d7, moves out of the way to facilitate the bishop on g7 being active. But another idea is the knight simply wants to reroute to the c5, e5 squares. And I have seen quite a lot of the time the pawn on f7 actually makes its way up to f5, more likely when the bishop on c8 could recapture.
Yeah, once this knight moves out the way, you're right. I'm very surprised by Magnus's last move. He's been dancing around with his queen a bit. That's the third time she's moved out. She lands back on d8, her starting square. And that is the signal for Maxime to go forward. And Magnus maybe just wants to set up in a hedgehog-esque type of structure. All the pawns on the 6th rank, and he's just going to ask Maxime to come at him.
And Maxime needs no further invitation. That this is where we get into the player's styles. F4 is not a move that this position requires. There's lots of slower ways to play, but definitely F4, a very Maxime move. He's taking control of the e5 square in the center that a lot of Magnus's pieces would want to use, and he's reserving attacking ideas with pushing forward with f5 in the future.
Yeah, super flexible for both sides. We should mention maybe Maxime feels a bit more responsibility to do something, partly because of the match score, partly because with the space, you often feel like you are the one who kind of needs to make a decision. Magnus will just slowly, don't even know what he's going to do, to be honest, but he will slowly creep forward if he can, maybe put some pawns forward, maybe start bringing his pieces towards the center. But yeah, I do really like these positions. I'm slightly biased in White's favor, generally, Aman.
Right. And maybe this is also a bit of gamesmanship by Magnus. He knows that MVL is going to feel compelled a little bit to kind of maybe overpress. So he's giving him one of those positions where maybe that's possible. And it's not to say that every advance here is going to be incorrect, but we're definitely going to get that type of game where Magnus is almost looking to rebound and look for counterplay off of MVL's decisions.
Yeah, and there we go. Already the first little tussle on the queen side. Both sides are kind of bluffing with pawn sacrifices or kind of bishop for knight exchanges. It was possible there to wreck White's pawn structure, I should say, but again, it comes at a cost of your beautiful dark square bishop, and Maxime's rook would have opened up. Now, White should not get tempted to take on c5 and take this pawn on a4, because at the very end of the variation, the black bishop would come and would have come to d4, pinning the white queen. That would have been a bit nasty. Okay, bishop g4. Feels like they're tiptoeing around each other here.
It does, yeah. And I have to say, at least visually, it feels like Magnus has accomplished a little bit more. Looking at the knight on c6 and kind of expecting maybe knight a5 in the near future, hitting c4, hitting the b3 square, also opening up the bishop on b7. And I was even considering, on the last move I was considering it, but in general, the move f5 by black could be a sneaky way to actually open up lines for black to use against white's position.
Yeah, definitely. I think Magnus, if he were forced to, he might have played f5 last move, but he's happy to build up. He probably feels quite comfortable knowing that Maxime hasn't really improved white's position too much in the last 3 or 4 moves. I don't like the fact that he kind of played rook c1 and then back to b1. Rook doesn't make a great impression there. And bishop d4 does feel like a kind of one mover. Maybe he'll just get the queen out in the way Magnus next, and then he'll bring his rook to the center or decide on f5. Maxime loses a tempo. He drops back with his bishop again. Ugh. Feels like he's just waiting here.
Yeah, it does feel like he's kind of going back and forth, whereas Magnus's position seems to be improving. I mean, I can see a knight, like the knight on c3, doing well on the b5 square, hitting the d6 pawn, but there's also that knight on d2 that needs to get out of the way, and there's not a great square for that piece, to be honest with you. F1 is not terribly impressive, and first sort of committal decision, pawn to e5, at the very least, David, even if this is an achievement for Magnus, I think it gives MVL that sort of attacking thrust that he's looking for.
100% agree. I must admit, that's why I just kind of marvel at the games of Magnus, Hikaru, and these guys. They're never scared to make these committal decisions and back them up with energetic play. Yes, Magnus gets an outpost, but he also gives a lot of squares. And like you said, MVL, potential attack, now in direct threat against the black rook. And pawn on f5 always... you always start to get a bit scared of it advancing further. So this is suddenly not one-way traffic anymore. And yeah, it's just a battle of squares, right? It's both sides have beautiful squares for their knights.
Yeah, the e4 pawn is under attack. Both of those knights in, performing a defensive job there. The pawn on a4 is great. So it feels like there's just so many squares and pawns and weaknesses. And on top of everything, there's also this attack that white's trying to push through over here. So maybe bishop back to h3 and try to get really crazy with a move like g4.
Yeah, I like it. And I could imagine Maxime playing something like that in the near future. He's hesitating. What's he thinking about here? Is it something like f6? But I don't know, that looks like it doesn't or shouldn't work at least. Maybe though, trying to get greedy, hitting the rook.
Yeah, that's one of those moves where I think you could probably successfully take the bishop and just play it safe, or even give up the material, which Magnus would probably not hesitate to do.
Yeah, agreed. He loves sacrificing the exchange. Okay, we see it.
Wow.
Oh, and now the knight on d4 at least has been undermined, so we see some exchanges.
Yeah, the knight, like bishop takes on d4, does get that pawn back, but also kind of plays into Magnus's overall hand, which is trade a lot of pieces, and everyone has weaknesses in this position, so it's up to the players to really prove it now.
Yeah, it's level material, we should remind everyone, but you're 100% right. It's all about the remaining weaknesses here, and normally I do quite like knights. If the queens are on, for example, the white queen could combine with the knights and maybe some dark square weaknesses for black, but queen exchange, it's Magnus Carlsen, it's an endgame. I can't see him being in too much trouble here. e4 maybe going to drop off for d6. We'll see a bunch of exchanges now.
Yeah, all those weak pawns that we were talking about earlier are starting to just fall off one by one. And it's a good reminder in these positions that you always want to be, creating a threat. You don't see Magnus playing rook d8 to guard his weak pawn. You see him playing rook e8 to make a threat on white's weak pawn. Just always, always playing active ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Every move counts, and you always want to be quicker in the race. Magnus, though, making a bit of a face there. Maybe thinking that he's not gotten any advantage here, but it doesn't look like he's worse either, which is good news for him. A draw in this game, maybe looking likely, Aman, just due to the reduced material here.
Yeah, certainly a great chance. And of course, with the target score of 2.5 points, a draw putting Magnus back with the white pieces just in the overall match puts him in a fantastic position to even close it out in 3 games. So I'm sure he's not thinking that far ahead right now, but what he definitely knows is draw is a perfectly good result.
Yeah, game by game, move by move, and all that stuff. And okay, we see the first exchange of pawns. Just like you said, every move comes with a threat. That takes with the bishop first in order to force this exchange. And okay, more pawns dropping. It's 4 versus 4. I tend to prefer having the pawn mass though here, especially because the white a pawn, even if it becomes passed, it's going to take an eternity for it to kind of cross to the other side of the board with rooks still remaining. Whereas the white king, if the black rooks get to the second rank, you could imagine the white king coming under fire here.
Yeah, agreed. The pawn on a3, you know, if it was on a6, it's almost more of a dangerous pass pawn, but on a3, it feels like more of a weakness that can be targeted, not very well supported. So MVL, as the eval bar suggests, just slightly worse, but obviously a draw is still the most likely result.
Yeah, I think the dream here for white would be to trade off all the rooks, and then the a pawn becomes a real kind of outside threat. And there we go. He actually prepares to push that pawn forward. Who would you pick in this position?
Well, I definitely pick Magnus. It feels like the kind of position that he's just really happy to be in, where the results that you're playing for are all in his favor. I could see him even winning this position. Rook c2, by the way, is a move that indicates that desire. You know, if a4, a5, a6, Magnus is looking at counterplay. Like, he wants to move the knight and bring his other rook into the e2 square.
Oh, MVL's just ignoring that idea though.
Uh-oh.
Okay, knight trade. I thought he'd play like knight c5.
Yeah, I agree. Knight c5, knight g5. I was looking at very aggressive options, but with the a-pawn going and the nature of the position, I think he wanted to play it safe with knight d2. But rook e3 it's almost MVL saying, like, I'm not quite done with this game just yet.
Yeah, nice move. I think Magnus might have missed this one. Counterattacking, offering a rook trade. So the knights will remain on the board at least for a move or two longer. To trade or not to trade first. Rook takes e3. Maybe he's going to run Magnus, but then, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like Magnus, just with his last move, might have let MVL back in the game.
Yeah, just a little bit. It does feel like that momentum-wise. And with the rook going over to the c file, you know, the rooks cannot double on the second rank as easily because they're on the same file now. And an interesting thing is, if all the rooks disappeared and it was a knight endgame, white would be doing pretty well with that pass pawn all the way on the a file.
Yeah, so it's all about which pieces to trade every endgame here. Clocks are ticking, no increments. I wouldn't mind seeing a time scramble, I've got to admit. Very different from the previous game, which is a good thing for MVL.
Exactly. So we're down into, you know, at least this game has gone much longer than the first one, right? So we're getting into that part of the game where all of a sudden time becomes a factor, and now it's just a 3-minute blitz game instead of a 10-minute game. So we'll see whether, you know, this game actually... Whoa, rook e2, knight f3. I wasn't expecting so much drama from a position I thought was going to liquidate.
Whoa, and knight takes h2. Brilliant move,
goodness.
apparently. The idea is that if the knight is captured, black will play pawn to g3, a fork, distraction for the white king there, and the white rook might fall at the very end. That is brilliant. That's out of nowhere.
Wow. I'm in shock, because it really felt like pieces were just going to trade, and MVL definitely saw knight f3 and thought king f2 was safe. Instead, we're going to have an exchange, and now it's a rook end game where you got to push that pawn.
Yeah, and computer says level, but this could still go in any direction. The black rook forced into passivity. Black does have a 3 versus 1 advantage, though, on the king side. Oh, I've got to say, this one might be logical that this is level. It just feels like black will not be able to push on the king side anymore. And white will just wait with his rook if need be, and the black rook simply cannot move.
Yeah, there's the usual idea is that when you have your rook behind a passed pawn like this, that you have great chances. But black's rook is very well stationed. You know, it's defending the g6 pawn while preventing any movement on the other side. And well, I mean, the plan is clear here. He wants to go and just take this pawn.
Yeah. And it's going to be an interesting dynamic when you take the pawn. White cannot actually recapture and go into a king and pawn endgame because black will be winning long term. So white will have to move the rook away here, but a check, the pawn drops, and yeah, everything disappearing. Ooh, although the black king's coming, still not obvious.
Yeah, played with confidence, king g5. I feel like this is a moment where MVL needs to be quite careful. King e2, I don't think we can actually grab that pawn on f5. So, you know, this is more of a rook to f4 move, maybe in reaction, and just kind of hold on.
Yeah, just wait and maintain the fortress. And Magnus reacted slightly. I think he was a bit frustrated, but looks like neither side can improve their position right now. And okay, we'll see. Everything fizzle out. King versus king. It's a draw in game 2.
Yeah, wow. What a weird result. Like, to get to a draw that quickly, I think maybe both players thought there was more in it than that. But MVL looking calm, cool, collected. He's already left the chair. He's happy to just walk out of that one with a draw.
Yeah, he's at least on the scoreboard. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave under a little bit of pressure there, I'm going to say, in that in-game as well. So a decent result for him, but only 2 games to go. And like you said earlier, like you referenced, Magnus can actually win the whole chess.com Classic here and now in this next game.
Yeah, 1.5 to half for Magnus Carlsen over MVL. We know the target score is 2.5. So, I mean, it can really get done in just one more game, David. Is this the, going into it, you'd have to say this is kind of the dream start for Magnus Carlsen, right?
Yeah, the dream start. And there is a dilemma, though. Often, the closer you get to the finishing line, the more nervous you get, the more tense you feel. You tighten up a bit. And does Magnus play for the win here, or does he just play something super safe, get a draw, inch closer to that 2.5 kind of goal? It's always a tough one. Knowing Magnus, he'll try and play a normal game, won't worry too much about the result. But Aman, I wouldn't blame him if he tries to keep things solid in this next encounter.
Agree. It's important to note that even though that 2.5 score is so tempting, he's not in a position where he needs to go all out to achieve it. A draw and even another draw after that would secure the match. Not to mention Armageddon is still a place where anything can happen. So agreed, still work to be done, but Magnus Carlsen in the lead, and with more chess coming up, I want to tell everyone here about Chess Up. Wondering if you guys grew up playing chess with your dad, just like me, because Father's Day is coming soon in the US, and we've got the perfect gift for you. Chess Up 2 allows you to play over-the-board chess with anyone, no matter how far away you might be. Now you can finally play that game of chess you promised your father all those years ago. And the Chess Up 2 still syncs to chess.com, so you can use game analysis later, confirm how you orchestrated his downfall piece by piece. Yeah, he'll love that. If you're ready to give the winning gift this Father's Day, take 10% off your purchase of the Chess Up 2 with code CCT10 at playchessup.com, or use !ChessUp in chat to unlock this offer for a limited time only. We've got Game 3 of the chess.com Classic Grand Final coming up. MVL needs to come back. Stick around. We'll be right back after this break.
Has this ever happened to you?
Oh, shoot. Another mouse slip.
What about this?
Oh, well, holy bishops en passant. I think I'm getting carpal tunnel. If only there was a way to play online chess with a real-life board.
What if I told you you can with Chess Up 2? That's right. With Chess Up 2, you can now play over the board online.
Wow.
Simply connect your chess.com account to our state-of-the-art Chess Up 2 and get a game started. Every time you move, our revolutionary board will transmit the data online directly to your opponent. And as soon as they move, squares will light up, signifying which piece is going where.
Well, shucks. This Hikaru guy seems pretty good.
With Chess Up 2, mouse slips and sore wrists are a thing of the past.
My carpal tunnel is gone. Well, this sure is fun. I'm playing online against my new friend Hikaru. Who needs a family? But I sure do miss clicking on a piece and seeing all of my available moves, like they have on chess.com.
Well, Danny, you're in luck. This feature is totally available on the Chess Up 2 as well.
Wow, Well, I'm convinced. But hey, what if I don't just want to play an opponent online? What if I want to use one of Chess.com's other great tools?
I thought you'd never ask. With Chess Up 2, you can fully take advantage of the Chess.com integration by playing bots, analyzing your offline games, and even using our optional AI assistants to visualize the quality of moves with color-coded hints.
Well, holy Chess Up, you did it. You made IRL chess cool again.
You got it, Danny.
And how do you know my name?
Play chess today on the board of tomorrow.
The fastest, easiest way to improve your chess is now the most fun way to improve your chess. Chess.com's brand new puzzles now have loads of exciting features to make solving a joy. Earn points and race your friends across puzzle tiers from wood to bronze, all the way to legend. Rack up bonuses for streaks, for speed, for accuracy, for daily solving, difficulty, and more. And now, you can get feedback from Coach while solving puzzles. Coach lets you know what each puzzle's goal is and why a move doesn't actually work. And, as always, puzzles will be selected just for your level from our database of hundreds of thousands of high-quality, beautiful, brilliant, and instructive puzzles. So what are you waiting for? Try puzzles today on web, Android, or iOS, and have a blast leveling up your chess.
Have you been enjoying the synthwave music during our ad breaks? If you haven't heard of Lo-Fi Girl, they're a YouTube channel that has several 24/7 live streams of lo-fi music, synthwave, and other genres. And they have over 15 million subscribers. This year, they also partnered with Chess.com to create a synthwave playlist for the Champions Chess Tour. Listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, or if you're a distinguished vinyl collector like myself, order your limited edition vinyl. Learn more at go.chess.com/lo-fi. And David, as we bring everyone back in, of course, game 3 upcoming, there is going to have to be some, big work done by MVL to come back in this matchup. He's down, and, as they say in tennis, it's kind of, match point. It could all end in this game right here, 1.5 to half.
Exactly. I was loving those lo-fi beats during the break, but I wonder what Maxime Vachier-Lagrave was up to, because he simply cannot afford to lose this next game, as you say. He has black. I think a draw isn't the worst result, so Maxime doesn't need to go all out now. He will get white in the final game if it does kind of extend to kind of go the full to that fourth point. And I think just playing his normal stuff would make a lot of sense here. If Magnus does the same as he did in the earlier game, then maybe some questions, Aman. But okay, he switches things up. Magnus this time with d4 this time.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that as a trend. If a player has a successful game against their opponent, they're actually the one that doesn't repeat, because Well, they know that, of course, who has been looking at that during the break the most? It's MVL. So, why play and repeat something that your opponent now has just checked? Instead, play something completely different and hope to get that, same good start that you had in game one.
Yeah, and Maxime going back to basics. He's playing his childhood favorite, the opening that he built a career on. I'm going to say Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, the Grunfeld defense, and they've had so many tussles in this exact opening throughout the years. I can count at least 15, 20 games just off the top of my memory that they've fought it out in mainline Grunfelds. And okay, Magnus gives a check with his bishop, a very trendy line. Aman, do you think going into a main line like this, who do you think it's going to favor?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was seeing the Grunfeld on the board here, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this is an opening I just really haven't seen at any level, let alone the top level, as much recently. I feel like it's kind of fallen out of favor. There's just openings that you can put less effort in and maybe have even better results. There's kind of more yield. And it's an opening that he knows so well. So it almost is such a shame to have that knowledge go to waste. So it's nice to see that he's bringing it back here. But I will say, one of those openings that has that reputation, it's old, the players know it, it's tried and true. I feel like there's nothing new here that Magnus is going to be surprised by. So it doesn't feel like an overly ambitious decision. Still, he knows it better than almost anyone in the world. So he's the guy that you want playing it.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't think he should be too worried, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave here. This bishop b5 line where white often does end up taking the black knight just to relieve some pressure on the center. It does have a bit of a drawish reputation, so maybe Magnus playing it a bit conservatively here. And nice to see Maxime bring it back, as you say. He's kind of gone away from it. He wants to be less predictable, understandably, less of a kind of sitting duck in the opening,
right,
playing all these Queen's Gambit accepted lines. But nice to see him going back to what he knows best. And okay, Magnus going for it now, not playing the safest. He steps forward with his pawn here.
Yeah, pawn to d5, and knight to e5 is the clear reaction. Knight into the center of the board. The knight on f3 is pinned, and there could even be a very, very forcing line with bishop back to e2 and lots of trades on this f3 square. The bishop on g7 would be eyeballing the c3 pawn, and I've just seen a lot of these games, David, just really liquidate, and everything seems to disappear all at once.
Yeah, looking into the future, crystal ball out. I like it. And I think very likely as well. Not sure Maxime can keep the tension too long. There's a big question here, like whether you take with the bishop or the knight. Maybe knight more forcing bishop takes. There is an outside chance of white taking back with the pawn. I know it looks ugly, but if you get a bit more time, you could kick back the the black knight from the center and start expanding with white. Let's see what mood Maxime is in here, but definitely in his comfort zone.
Right. And where do you think Magnus's head is at between those two decisions? If we see a capture on f3, is he looking to be ambitious with g takes, or is he just fine to play it safe and, say, look, Maxime hasn't posed too much danger to me to match so far, so why don't I just keep going like this, because another draw in the final game will win the match?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to recent history. He actually takes with the knight, Maxime. I think more likely that pawn would have captured if there'd been an imbalance like the bishop pair. But yeah, it would have been interesting, Magnus's approach there. But I'm just looking back in the World Blitz Championship, the infamous one that was shared between Magnus and Nepo. Magnus was 2 points up, but he still played for a win. He still went for it. So I think that's just his mindset these days. Interesting tactic, by the way, for everyone at home. Bishop takes pawn was played last move because there was an attacking against the black bishop, and just like you predicted, everything's liquidating now.
Yeah, the eval bar is right around the middle, right there, 0.00, and there's just not much in this game. I will say that it's kind of nice to have that advanced central pawn on d5, which can be nicely supported by the rooks, but that's pretty much it. In an endgame, David, those queenside pawns are actually very valuable. So it's I wouldn't say that there's just one thing that's better than the other. It just depends on the nature of the position.
Yeah, still plenty of life left. Like we shouldn't kind of guarantee that this is going to fizzle out to equality, especially while the queens remain on the board. But yeah, white's pressure along this diagonal can be slightly uncomfortable for black, I guess. The black queen a bit tied down there. And it still takes white ages, though, to advance in the center. So all things being level, this should be kind of a position where both sides are happy. Magnus looks like he's eating again. I'm pretty sure I saw him have lunch earlier, but yeah, he was snacking on something there. And yeah, just plays a very calm improvement move there. The White King has some breathing space.
Yeah, my feeling about these positions is really that if the queens are on the board, that it would favor white, and if the queens were off the board, you start to get into positions where those queenside pawns on a7 and b6 matter a lot more. So I'm interested to see if that's how things play out. Definitely, if the rooks are on the board, that's along the same line as the queens. I feel like the more pieces in general, white is kind of happier, and more those pieces disappear, we get to a pure endgame. I think MVL would have better chances.
Yeah, and talking of MVL's chances, he played a very committal move, showing he's not happy to just kind of settle in for a dull equality. He pushed his pawn forward to f5, and yeah, now the Black King a bit airy, but the Black Rook a lot more potential. And he did have to cede the c file in the process. And Magnus has his eyes on maybe planting his rook on e6. Magnus smiling, maybe liking his position now.
Yeah, I wonder what that's about. I can say that I've probably never looked at my position and really just smiled. So I wonder if it's about the chess, or you just thought of something.
Same. I'm normally crying when I look at my position, just trying to hide the pain, the hurt. But yeah, Magnus, I must admit, I like this development for white just because there's so few pieces on the board that any attack is unlikely. And just the fact he's been able to post up a really strong rook here. And if there are simplifications, maybe black has more weaknesses than white.
Right, and it's also an important question. You know, when the F file opens up, who's it actually going to favor? Because I could definitely see, you know, F takes E4, Queen takes E4. If white just steps out of things with King G2 and pawn to F4, there's just nothing happening down the F file at all. So Bishop D6 and MVL just, can't really be playing for any type of advantage here anymore, David.
Yeah, and Magnus has a big decision. I agree. It's definitely black fighting for equality. Bishop takes bishop, much safer. Bishop to b2, like something on this diagonal just feels like that might be the more ambitious choice here. Maybe also the more risky. If the queens ever come off, then black's bishop is super strong in an endgame. Maybe there would be weak pawns for black to chase. He trades off Magnus, potentially kind of affected by the match situation, and he plays h4. Magnus always plays h4 every game, so slight advantage for white here.
Yeah, h4 is the move lately in the current trend of chess that is always good in any position at any time, and no exception here. I thought that he would consider queen to e6 check, getting the queens off the board, and rook takes d6. Is that available?
Yes. I don't see why not.
We both have a question mark at the end of our sentences here. We're as quizzical as Magnus probably is right now.
It's because it's too, I'm not going to say too obvious, but it's there. It's a pawn hanging, and it's a counterattack against the black queen. It's like a very straightforward tactic. Does MVL want to go into a rook endgame? And then maybe bring the black rook across and go for some pawns?
Right. I mean, at this point, David, it's not whether he wants to, because he might have to. So whether he intended this or not, definitely given a question mark here by the engine. And it's looking like Magnus is kind of slowly coming to terms that rook d6 is just available, and that has to be a bit of a blunder there.
Yeah, and I've just turned on the engine for the first time today, and it did confirm that this is a winning advantage for white. It's rook takes d6 was the only way, but it was a very natural way. It's a simple deflection tactic. Queen for queen there, and white, not sure how to convert this advantage in the smoothest way, but simply a clear pawn. And you mentioned the queenside majority. White could chop off a pawn and kind of simplify things. I'm not sure you want to at this point. Maybe better to keep your options open. But either way, I don't think black's pawns are quick enough here, man.
Yeah, there's a big problem here. The first issue is that the king on g8 is cut off by the white rook. And then the second one is that the white king can just come up and bother the rook on d4 and just move up the board. King e4, king e5, maybe king f6 for a checkmate threat. If not, just assist the pawn. I'm with you. This looks completely winning and just kind of speaks to today's form for MVL just not being good enough.
Yeah, just something was a bit off. Just that decision to trade bishops, maybe that's where it began, or maybe it was all with F5, that move earlier, just breaking out, that indecision whether to just sit tight, be happy with a draw, or to play for a win. Of course, the day started badly, and he was always up against it from that moment. But
Right.
yeah, this is odd to see. And Magnus is spoiled for choice. He actually saves this pawn first of all. He's allowing the F2 pawn to drop, but then I think he'll proceed with that plan you mentioned, just push in the center. White's got an active king and an extra pawn. That's normally more than enough in a rook endgame.
Exactly. Yeah, there's really no way that I can see to save this. Also, just how much time the players have. This isn't something where you're going to be messing up because you're moving too quickly. All the time in the world to just get these moves right.
Yeah, and the bar is sky high. I think Magnus simply actually has a threat here to start pushing his d pawn.
Yep.
Maybe he'll just take a step back and grab black's pawn first. Nope, he advances. Big threat to give a check and then just run through and promote. So black has to stop that.
Yeah, and the b pawn is for the taking, but there's really no rush to do so. I think the black king being cut off by the rook on the 7th rank is also very powerful. So he just wants to leave it there as long as possible. But maybe when black's pawn gets up to b3, he might grab it then.
Exactly. I mean, he can take this one. He can maybe even take the other one. I'm not sure. Or he can just advance his king and kind of continue threatening. There we go. He drops back, takes a timeout, and yeah, active king, extra pawn. Normally, you need two things in a rook endgame, right? You need to be 2 pawns up, or you need an active piece and an extra pawn, or 2 weaknesses to hit on. But here, Magnus has everything.
Exactly. Yeah, everything. The king is more advanced. The black king has nowhere to go. You can set up your king kind of in front of your pawn here. Kind of heading to the d7 square. And at the end of the day, you can also give up that d pawn and kind of trade it off for maybe the 2 pawns on the king side instead. So you have every choice in front of you.
Yeah, he zigzags his way in. He's going to hide in front of his own pawn. And yeah, I think the kingside pawns here are just totally irrelevant. White is going to give a check now, cut the black king off even further. And I mean, he's just powerless here, MVL, to stop the inevitable. Once you give a check, you've already actually built a bridge. And for those of you at home familiar with the Lucina position, you normally need your rook, the white rook, to kind of guard checks from behind when the king eventually pokes its head out and starts kind of coming out from in front of its own pawn. This one, it's ready-made for him, Aman. It's a clearly winning position now for Magnus. This could be it.
Yep. And he already has this worked out. You mentioned the rook is already perfectly placed. Rook f4 and king e7 will be just perfect bridge building. As you said, he goes rook d4. He's got it done his own way. He's building the bridge first, and I don't think that there's any way for MVL to keep fighting here. And what a tough exit for him. And Magnus Carlsen, your winner.
There we go. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave resigns. Magnus Carlsen takes it in 3, 2.5 today, winning both of his white games in very, very smooth style. Deserving winner, Aman. I don't think we can argue with that. But it wasn't the fight we were wanting. It wasn't down to the wire in the end. It was just Magnus giving us a textbook, just showing us all his skills in the endgame, but also with that checkmate in the first game.
Exactly. Yeah, the chess.com classic champion. That's Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen, a familiar spot for him to be in this Champions Chess Tour. Many wins in this format, and also, a win for Team Liquid on top of this tournament, David.
Yeah, Team Liquid signed up a pretty decent player, I've got to say. And Magnus living up to all the expectations, winning yet another tournament this year. He's been in crazy form in 2025 so far, and it felt like he didn't even need to leave first or second gear to clinch this one today. But of course, he did the hard work earlier this week as well, and a deserving winner. But Maxime Vachier-Lagrave can hold his head up high. He's had a great week too, and he'll be looking forward to the Esports World Cup.
He has, and MVL and Team Vitality, I mean, they just have to be thrilled. That was an amazing performance. We were talking earlier in this event, David, about Maxime Vachier-Lagrave perhaps not even having a spot in the Esports World Cup in Riyadh. So now we're discussing, his performance in the grand final, maybe not being his best today. I think that's a crazy jump that he's taken in just a matter of days. So it's been truly a tremendous week for the Frenchman.
Exactly, and everyone can have an off day against Magnus. It's allowed. It's expected at some point. But you're right. Maxime was fighting for his life. There was a scenario where him and Levon Aronian were on the brink of elimination. He managed to clutch up and qualify in the end and get through to the final, which was impressive enough. But it ended there. And congratulations to Magnus yet again.
Exactly. Magnus Carlsen always seems to get it done, but MVL, truly a phenomenal performance. We are going to be going to a break, and Magnus Carlsen is nearby for an interview. But before we go there, I want to remind everyone about Neuro. Focus, memory, and performance are critical factors in the game of chess. As we all know, Neuro's memory and focus gum is packed with clinically studied ingredients to help boost all of that. Whether you're looking for an early morning lift, late night pick-me-up, or simply a refreshing burst of peppermint, there's a reason why Neuro is the fastest growing brand on TikTok. Visit go.chess.com/Neuro or use !Neuro in chat to explore their range of products now. And you can save 15% using code CHESS15. Interview with Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen, your winner of the 2025 Chess.com Classic, coming up after this break.
Everybody has days where they just don't feel up for it. You look in the mirror and you're not your full self. NeuroGum, energy and focus. I know a guy who uses the gum to help get ready for his day. And it tastes good. That's the energy and focus this guy needs to go bring smiles to the faces of chess pieces everywhere. There he is. That's my guy. Always forward, never back. NeuroGum, helping little pawns feel big since 2015.
Can you handle it? Where grandmasters don't just move pieces, they cast spells.
Oh boy, didn't see that one coming.
Victory doesn't come easy.
Wait, queen time?
Oh shoot, I just lost a piece. Yeah, but I got no mana.
This isn't your classic chessboard.
The thing about the imposter is that if you swap it like...
It's not just a game, it's a battleground of minds.
Let's have some fun, Let's have some fun.
When the greatest minds meet magic, anything can happen. On chess, cast that spell, play for free.
What if I told you I became a grandmaster by solving the same exact chess exercises over and over again? Yes, it sounds a little crazy. After all, if each chess game is different, why repeat something you've seen before? Shouldn't you practice calculating in unique positions every time? Well, that's true. But there's also a way to train your brain to streamline its calculations. And that's the woodpecker method. My friend Hans Tikkanen invented the woodpecker method in 2010 when he was training to become a grandmaster. 7 weeks after he finished using his method, he earned all 3 of his GM noms to earn his title. Seeing his success, I had to try it for myself. And a couple of years later, I became a grandmaster too. As word spread, others tried it too, with excellent results. Okay, so what is the woodpecker method? The first step is to take any large amount of chess puzzles and solve as many as you can in 4 weeks. In my books and chessable courses on the woodpecker method, there are about 1,000. You don't need to do that many, especially if you are a beginner, but I recommend solving at least a few hundred. At the end of the 4 weeks, take a break, a few days at least. Then, solve the same exact problems again, this time aiming to finish them in 2 weeks. You might remember the solutions from before, that's okay, but try to solve them like you're seeing them for the first time. After you finish the second cycle, try solving them in 1 week, and then a few days, and then try solving all of them in a single day. It's not easy work, trust me. I didn't think I was going to make it the first time I tried it, but the results were remarkable. It's because much of chess is pattern recognition. Rather than calculating every single move in a position, your brain looks for ideas and patterns it has seen before first, and they help you calculate faster and more accurately. So by doing the woodpecker method, you're building intuition, helping your brain become more efficient in calculation. And that's the woodpecker method in a nutshell.
Welcome back to the 2025 Chess.com Classic. Myself and David are going to be joined by our winner of the event, Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen. Magnus, congratulations. I wish I could say, it was a day of hard work, but honestly, you made it look easy. It wasn't a terribly long day. I mean, was this the Maxime that you expected to show up today after everything you saw, him dominating 3 matches just yesterday?
Yeah, I obviously thought today was going to be a bit different. I think in these matches, the first game kind of always makes a big difference. And honestly, it felt to me in the second game that, because I didn't play so well in the opening in the second game, but it felt like he was a bit rattled. And he made like 4 or 5 moves in a row, which positionally I thought weren't very good, and he made them quite quickly as well. So yeah, after that, it was kind of a lot easier than I expected. But yeah, I'll take it, of course.
Yeah, congratulations, Magnus. And you had the day off yesterday. The game starts quite late today. How did you prepare for this match? How did you stay in the right mindset?
Honestly, I've been busy all day. What can I say? I'm living like sometimes at least more of a grown-up life than I used to. So I was really quite busy all day. And honestly, I felt like 10 minutes before the game, my games today, I felt really, really tired, but I managed to find something. And then our beloved Asios at Take had his birthday, so there was like a little bit of birthday cake left for me, which might have been a really bad idea if it was a long match, but for a short one, it was perfect.
Yeah, and Magnus, we were also noting that you had another match against Maxime. You played him twice. He wasn't able to snag a win against you in this event. Is that a style matchup with Maxime, or what can we attribute that to? Because he was able to take out so many strong players, but he just can't seem to get it done with you. Is this the Magnus effect again?
Well, honestly, the first match, I was dead lost in the first game. Like, he definitely outplayed me in that one, and I was so tilted as well that I would almost certainly have lost that match if I lost the first game. So that was kind of close, but I think those games really, they determine matches quite a bit. And I think Maxim said it himself that he really needed to be at his A game today to have any shot, and he wasn't, and that's why the match was not close.
And Magnus, this sets you up perfectly for the Esports World Cup now. Do you think you're a big favorite heading into that event, or kind of what's your mindset heading into that one?
Yeah, I mean, it feels in both events so far that I, like, with the exception of 1 or 2 matches, I haven't been pushed all that much. So it really couldn't have gone much better in that sense. I think it's never going to be that easy, really. Obviously, if you put forward another favorite whom you thought was bigger, I would disagree with all my heart. But I think these events have their own lives, and yeah, I'm sure we're up for surprises. But it's good to see that the format and especially the time control actually suits me quite well.
Well, perfect follow-up question, Magnus, from the chat. Wondering if you're taking Norway chess seriously, and how you're feeling about classical events these days. We've got this esports format with no increment and the exciting World Cup coming up. What's your feeling about classical long play chess compared to this kind of more rapid esports attempt?
Yeah, I haven't thought that much about it. The only thing I thought was not always, but I usually play a bit better when I have a bit of practice from serious events. So I was really hoping, but that this event would be very good practice for Norway chess, but it probably wasn't, because I played the minimum amount of games more or less in order to to win the event. On a more serious note, I certainly want to do well in Norway chess, but I have done some prep, but not a whole lot. So we'll see how I stack up against some of the the more serious players.
And Magnus, another question from chat, a bit of a gear shift though. This is from Gateway22X, and they're curious to find out whether you see yourself playing chess well into your 50s, or would you prefer to buy an island and retire at some point?
Can't I just buy an island and then get Wi-Fi and play chess from there? I don't see the problem.
Is that the dream?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
That's a valid answer, and a fantastic way to wrap this up. Magnus on his island playing chess one day. We'd love to see it. Whatever prolongs your involvement. Magnus, congratulations on yet another win. 2025 Chess.com Classic and Champions Chess Tour, and we look forward to seeing you representing Team Liquid in the Esports World Cup. Congrats.
Thanks, I do too.
There you have it, David. Always a pleasure to hear Magnus's thoughts, even after not the longest day of chess. But we can't forget the the whole journey that it's been for Magnus. He mentioned playing pretty much the minimum required games in order to get that win. But reflecting back on those matches, you wouldn't say that it was an easy path.
No, he took on some real titans, Magnus Carlsen, making it look easy, but that's only something really that he can do. He did defeat Jan-Krzysztof Duda in a very close match, then took down Vachier-Lagrave for the first time. Went on to face Nodibek Abdusattorov, convincing victory there. Of course, dramatic match against Hikaru Nakamura. That could have been very different if Hikaru hadn't clicked the resign button. And ultimately today, very convincing. But Magnus, great to see him in good spirits. Well deserved. I hope he goes out and celebrates tonight. But not a lot of rest for him. Aman, he's going to be back in action in just a few days at Norway Chess.
Exactly. We're talking about Magnus's success here, the champion of the Chess.com Classic. But, Norway Chess keeps him busy. He's got the Esports World Cup coming up. And what a shift to just be playing so many different types of chess, right? It feels like Magnus has got, his sights set on so many different things right now. It's really amazing that he can sort of keep up in every single format.
Yeah, I mean, he's a man of many talents. He seems to be the king of all formats. I think it's going to especially help Norway Chess with the Armageddon that is inevitable there. He's got such a phenomenal score throughout the years in Armageddon. That's why he has kind of dominated that tournament. And I think here, playing these fast time formats, no increment is really going to stand him in good stead. But either way, great to see him involved, and definitely he's the one to beat. He's put the target on his back, and the younger players, I can't wait to see Gukesh face him in Norway Chess. Still plenty to look forward to.
Indeed. David, not the longest day, but a pleasure to commentate alongside you. Hope to see us paired up together in the future. Chat and the producers, this has been a fantastic show, but that's all from us for today. So we say goodbye and That brings the Chess.com Classic to a close with Magnus Carlsen as your winner.
Whoa, and it's a blunder!
That was insane. 2 seconds.
He's got no time. He's got 1 second. And white wins if he flags because you got the pawns. Oh, he missed the checkmate, but he wins with checkmate anyway. Someone's gonna get flagged. If Hikaru gets flagged, I think that'll be the first. I've never seen that happen. He blunders a rook!
Blunders his rook, Hikaru. Wow. Both sides low on time. Anything could happen. He blunders his rook.
Oh my goodness!
Vachier-Lagrave.
Unbelievable!
Oh my goodness, he missed rook g3. Rook g3. He's forced
Oh my
Hikaru
God.
into finding a queen sacrifice checkmate him on.
Wait, what? Magnus played this. Hikaru is like, he thinks he's lost. He's behaving like he's lost. Magnus played it like it was winning. This is such a crazy...
He resigned! Oh my God, he resigned!
Oh my goodness, he resigned in a winning position. The most insane result in chess.
Some calculation needs to be done. You need to see your mate after rook takes knight here. This is happening, Aman. Knight has been played. Magnus has a draw, we should mention. He can repeat moves by dropping back with his queen.
Really tough position to be in. Also, bishop to d8. What a shocking turn of events.
Magnus, though, making a bit of a face there, thinking that he's not gotten any advantage here, but it doesn't look like he's worse either, which is good news for him. So we'll see. Everything fizzle out. King versus king. It's a draw in game 2. Magnus smiles.